There comes a moment on the path of growth where more awareness isn't the answer, where more strategy, more content, more visibility, it actually doesn't create more power. Because what you begin to realize is that without inner authority, everything you build starts to wobble. And that's where our conversation today begins. Because long before mindset became a buzzword, long before personal development was packaged into bite sized reels and affirmations, there was a man who asked a deeper question. What does it actually take to become a trustworthy human being in your own mind? In this episode, we are exploring the work of Rudolf Steiner, an Austrian philosopher, spiritual scientist, and one of the most precise thinkers on consciousness, ethics, and human development. And what he taught wasn't fluffy. If you read any of Rudolf Steiner's books, it wasn't fluffy. It's actually quite dense. And I wanted to break it down into something that is understandable, manageable, but also practical to your business growth and to the growth of your empire, because it was about discipline and inner mastery and moral authority. Steiner understood something that most of the modern world still avoids. As your awareness expands, so does your personal responsibility. Your personal responsibility must expand to match your level of awareness. And without structure, without training your thinking, without training your emotions and your will, you actually don't become more powerful. You can become more reactive, more distorted, and more disconnected from truth. So in this two-part episode, we are exploring what is now known as his 6 subsidiary exercises. 6 deceptively simple practices designed to stabilize you as a human being so that insight and any gnosis or knowledge or wisdom doesn't outpace your integrity, so that perception doesn't outgrow your character. And today we're bringing those teachings out of philosophy and into the pragmatic aspects of your own leadership and into business and into the way that you show up, that you speak, that you sell, that you decide, and that you lead. Your business is not separate from your consciousness. In fact, it's a reflection of it. So in this two-part series on the Crown Yourself podcast, we are not just talking about growth. We are talking about who you become in the process of growing. I am Kimberly Spencer, founder of Crown Yourself and international TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and certified high-performance business coach and visibility strategist. I mentor amazing leaders from Emmy Award-winning producers, executives who have run billion-dollar franchises, thought leaders, coaches, holistic healers, naturopaths, and every industry in between. In this series, we are not just talking about growth. We are talking about who you become in the process of growing. We are talking about thinking clearly when it matters most as a leader, holding your word when it's inconvenient, regulating your emotions when the pressure rises, and being able to build behind the work that you do on the daily basis that is what is going to sustain your growth so that you can scale. This is the structure beneath your success on the spiritual plane. And this is the discipline that turns awareness into authority. So if you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things in your business, but still something feels off, this might be the missing piece. So Rudolf Steiner taught 6 subsidiary exercises. I would totally butcher what it said, the word in German. He designed to build moral authority, inner stability, and ethical strength so that spiritual perception develops in balance with character. His core warning was clear. Without moral development, heightened spiritual perception can actually distort the ego rather than refine it. So these exercises come primarily from his work, Knowledge of the Higher Worlds and Its Attainment, and his related lectures. So in this episode today, we're going to be getting into what the 6 subsidiary exercises are. And in the following episode, we're going to be getting into the practical applications of how you can leverage these 6 exercises as your core CEO growth for your business and for your business structure. Exercise number 1, control of thinking. This one's a toughie in a world that is prone to distraction. Control of thinking requires you to have clarity, precision, and sovereignty of thought. And in a world where every influencer, myself included, I'm like not going to remove myself from the equation, where people are telling you how to think and what to think and how to shape your thinking. It's your job in your control of thinking to be able to choose a simple object, an idea, and think about it deliberately and clearly for a set period without drifting. So, this can be what a whole book was written on called Deep Work, about what the deep work is: a specific amount of time, choose to think about it for a specific amount of time, and think on only that. If you're listening to this podcast while driving or doing other things, this could be your exercise in control of thinking. What this does is this strengthens the inner authority that you have over the mind so that it doesn't drift from shiny object to shiny object. This prevents fantasy and projection or delusion as spiritual perception increases. So as you increase your spiritual perception to, sometimes this could be like experiencing precognition, experiencing psychic intuitive hits, you have to be able to sustain and control your thinking so you know what is a distortion and what is actually a directive. This trains you having control of your thinking. It trains the thinker because you choose to, not because thoughts arise unconsciously. So, for example, this is why meditation can be a very valuable practice. The outcome of this, of learning how to control your thinking, is you create more alignment to truth, you create intellectual humility, and you also create responsibility for your own perceptions. This is where you are able to be the gentle observer of your thoughts, recognizing the thoughts or ideas and the thoughts or ideas that come up around this. The second exercise is in control of will or initiative in action. This is your reliability, your integrity, your follow through. So, a basic practice is to commit to one small voluntary action at the same time every day. This could be watering a plant. This could be lighting a candle. This could be waking up and working out. You do it because you decided to do it, not because it's necessary. What the purpose of this does is that it strengthens your moral reliability. It builds that inner compass that you keep your word with yourself. It builds your backbone, basically, and it develops your character so that you know that you can back yourself because you keep your commitments to yourself. The ethical outcome that comes from this is you start to trust yourself more because you keep your commitments to yourself. And having coached leaders for a decade now, I can say that underlying all of the growth, all of the business growth, all of the personal growth that comes with coaching and that all of my clients have received, the number one base that every single client who has come to me to coach one-on-one has received is a deeper trust in their own ability, is a deeper trust in themselves. And it comes from having someone hold you accountable, even though ultimately no one can hold you accountable except for yourself. I am just, as the coach, the mirror for your own accountability to the things that you say you want to achieve. This builds your own self-command, your self-leadership, and it also reinforces your own inner strength. The third exercise is in equanimity of feeling. What does this mean? So, equanimity of feeling means that you have emotional balance. It means that you're emotionally non-reactive. So, your practice, should you choose to accept this practice, is in observing your emotional reactions. What pleases you? What irritates you? What excites you? What disappoints you? What frustrates you? Without suppressing those emotions or indulging in them, but recognizing the feeling that's coming up, acknowledging it, feeling it, and then allowing it to flow. This prevents spiritual insight from being distorted by emotional bias because we have multiple layers to our awareness. We have the spiritual plane, we have the mental chatter, we have the emotional experience, and then we have how it manifests in physical reality. For things to manifest in physical reality, it's got to go through that emotional barrier. And that's where fear comes up, frustration comes up, and all of the emotions that come through the day to day. So this can be watching the news or looking at a post from a certain person in a political space and recognizing what feelings come up. Are you emotionally thrown off your kilter because of this experience of seeing this post or seeing this ridiculousness? It allows you to emotionally mature and have compassion without enmeshment. We want to be able to remove ourselves emotionally from enmeshing in other people's reactions, which also prevents us from enmeshing in their own distortions. The fourth exercise is in positivity. It's in finding the good. And I can definitely say that this is one that I probably have the best experience in because I have always been the unsinkable optimist. I have always looked for a silver lining. I have always been the one who can find a silver lining in the darkest of times. In fact, there's one question that I ask my coaching clients regularly whenever they're facing something that's incredibly challenging. And it's this: how is this the best thing that ever happened to you? What positivity does. And this is not toxic positivity. And I hate the term toxic positivity, but it's not spiritual bypassing as a form of positivity. It's not saying everything's fine when it very clearly isn't. That's not emotional maturity. You're not emotionally acknowledging that you're frustrated, upset, angry, pissed off, sad with the experience of what is happening in the world. No, this positivity, when in its purest form, it means you're finding the good in the crappiest of situations. It is a practice of consciously seeking meaning or value in difficult people, in difficult situations, and in difficult experiences without denying the reality of it is what it is. This is not bypassing. This is very clear positivity. Clear eyed positivity is not denial of what's actually real. Clear eyed positivity is not denying or not reinforcing a boundary. Clear eyed positivity is recognizing what is the lesson in this for me? What is the growth that is available for me from this experience? The purpose of practicing positivity is that it prevents cynicism, it prevents superiority. It trains our souls to recognize that there is purpose even when faced with imperfection, even when faced with difficult people and situations and difficult experiences and difficult circumstances. The ethical outcome that comes from the exercise of positivity as a practice, the practice of positivity, is mercy. It's having a generosity of spirit. It's having wisdom, and it's having, quite frankly, reverence for the circumstances, knowing that no matter what challenge you're facing, you are going to experience meaning, value, and growth from it. The fifth practice is an open-mindedness or an impartiality. We are currently in a world where there is a lot of distortion and a lot of division and a lot of things that make a lot of perceptions and beliefs and paradigms being thrown at you that the system wants you to create rigid opinions. If you practice the art of open-mindedness, what this does is it liberates you from dogma. It actually creates egoic flexibility so that maybe you're able to see the other person's perspective. Maybe you're at least able to chunk up in NLP terms and see, wow, what this person wants is freedom. I want freedom too. What this person wants is to care for their family and to make sure their family is safe. I want that too. Even if you're on opposite sides of the spectrum of certain political beliefs or standpoints. This practice of open-mindedness, it prevents this crystallization of a belief, actually spiritual arrogance, where we think we're better than you because we have the right answer, because we are spiritually ascended and you are not. That is absolute BS. And that is actually the distortion of the ego when it's not rooted in the spiritual practice of open-mindedness. We want to keep our consciousness alive and adaptable and humane. What open-mindedness actually creates is tolerance. It creates humility. It creates true discernment and seeing through the matrix and propaganda of what people say they want you to think and actually allowing you to explore somebody else. I can definitely say from having this podcast and having hundreds of interviews under my belt and having gone on over 300 podcasts as a guest, I talk to a lot of people. And ultimately, when you talk to a lot of people from different backgrounds, different races, different genders, different sexual orientations, you are able to experience and realize that we have far more in common than we do in division. Open-mindedness opens up your world to have greater tolerance, greater respect for other people's humanity and their lived experience. rather than the dogmatic beliefs of division that the system would like you to believe. The sixth practice of morality in spiritual development is harmony. It's in balance of the soul. It's in the integration of all the other five. And it's a practice of regular self review. Are you thinking and feeling and willing to be in balance, to be in operating in harmony? Or are you overdeveloping one capacity at the expense of others? This practice of practicing harmony ensures that no single faculty is going to dominate your personality. What this practice of harmony it does is it creates an inner equilibrium that's actually capable in holding duality. The problem is so much of our culture wants to create an either or scenario when really the answer is yes and that is the paradox that we get to live in. Yes, you can have babies and have a thriving career. Yes, you can believe in the sovereignty of the individual and also honor the power of the collective. It allows you to have duality and experience and hold the space and have the capacity to hold duality. We also want to be sure that what harmony creates is it creates moral authority, coherence in heart brain connection, and also creates inner leadership so that you are able to lead from yourself, from your soul, from your highest self without being pulled into the distraction and distortion that the world, the systems, propaganda, and the matrix, quite frankly, would love to have you pulled into. I wanted to explore these topics on the Crown Yourself podcast because more and more is developing a business a spiritual practice. And when we have spiritual perception without moral development, it creates ego inflation, imbalance, and distortion. We're seeing that play out massively in religion, in the spiritual woo-woo communities as well. We want to anchor our awakening into ethical responsibility, into building inner authority, having integrity, having tolerance for each other, and seeing the sovereign being inside of each of us, including ourselves. We want to ensure that our insights, our spiritual insights, our gifts are leading to service, clarity, and consciousness, expanding, not in superiority. In modern terms, these six practices actually help regulate your nervous system. They allow you to train your metacognition. They allow you to integrate embodiment with ethics and perception. These are not just rules to contain you, these are actually guidelines that can help you expand your capacity. Moral authority arises when a human can clearly perceive without distortion, without compulsion, and without collapse or domination. These principles, these practices are foundational for conscious leadership, for somatic and spiritual integration, for ethical influence in times of rapid awakening and rapid chaos, and in rapidly changing times, both personally and collectively. So, we will be diving into part 2 on how to take these practices and practice the exercises of morality into your business and your leadership and what that actually can look like for you. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss part 2 to this episode. And as always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business because your reign is now. I'll see you in the next episode.